What's going on, guys? Bengal here, coming back at you with another video. And before you skip through to find your team, not like that's even relevant a year out from the draft, but before you get mad at me for the draft order, I took it off the most recent Super Bowl odds, and then it took me like a year basically to finish these graphics, so it might as well be 2022 draft time already. I went above and beyond to do these graphics. For what reason? I don't really know. Does it make the video look cooler? Yeah, probably. But you know what? If one or two of you guys who are new watching the video can appreciate the effort and hit the subscribe button, it'll all be worth it to me in the end. So now that that's out of the way, a couple other things. One, we are a year out. It's going to be really interesting to see how these players evolve over the next year. A lot of this is projection. So you're guessing that guys are going to take a step up and get in the first round conversation. This is more get to know the prospects than this is exactly who this team's going to draft. Some of these guys are going to go around where I'm projecting. Some of these guys could go undrafted. Some of these guys could return to school. Some of these guys could be not even first round or close. Could be 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever. But we're doing our best here, projecting a year out. It's nearly impossible, but it is fun. So let's get to know some of these prospects. I will say also, at some positions, especially quarterback, there are like 10 or 11 quarterbacks that I think could throw their name into the first round conversation. So it was really tough to choose QBs. I could see a bunch of different quarterbacks going in this particular draft. So we'll talk about that in there, but let's go ahead and get into each pick. So I'm not even going to show face cam for this because I did so much work to get these graphics together that I want to show you guys every piece of it. So we'll start off with number one. There are a bunch of different quarterbacks in the conversation. So I said I was going to talk about that. We are going to talk about it. It's not just Spencer Rattler. It's not just Sam Howell. There are a bunch of quarterbacks in contention to go very, very high in this draft. But after a new season of playing as the full-time starter, there's a really good chance that Spencer Rattler can earn his way into the number one overall pick. We've seen it with Baker Mayfield. We've seen it with Kyler Murray. These guys have earned their way into being the number one overall quarterback and player selected. And in that Lincoln Riley offense, anything's possible. Spencer Rattler has the tools. It wouldn't surprise me to see the Texans take a quarterback. The Lions as well. I think Sam Howell is like the baby Baker Mayfield. We're talking about Baker Mayfield. Sam Howell to me reminds me a lot of Baker. And the Lions could be moving on from Jared Goff at this point. They've been in a situation where they're taking best player available. I think the Lions are definitely going to look to take a quarterback, even if they don't decide to. They're going to do a lot of research. They're probably going to be picking very high in the draft. They recognize they're in full rebuild mode. So if you pick top 2 in the draft, I think you're looking at QB. And Sam Howell out of UNC is definitely near the top. And then Kayvon Thibodeau, maybe the best player in the class right now off the edge. Kayvon Thibodeau is phenomenal. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are a situation where they're improving and they have so many picks and they've had so many picks and they've signed a bunch of players because they had so much money. So this is just best player available. And if Kayvon Chason isn't the guy, like he certainly wasn't very good as a rookie, you could look to bolster the defensive line, use Kayvon Chason as a rotational pass rusher, and have Kayvon Thibodeau be your base 4-3 defensive end. And he is so, so good. Thibodeau is a stud. Right now, for me, the number one player in the 2022 class. And then for the Bengals, we're going to address offensive line. Evan Neal, plug-and-play tackle. Should be starting for Alabama, might make the transition over to the left side. So this is a big year for him, but the Bengals need to look to protect their quarterback in Joe Burrow, and Evan Neal, tackle out of Alabama, could certainly do that. Once again, I'd like to remind you to hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to me. It's completely free. You can scroll down and just smash it real quick, and I would appreciate it. You know, all the YouTubers say smash that subscribe button. Please actually do it. It would, be doing me a huge favor. And hey, if you have another guy you want me to check out, you're saying, hey, this guy's not getting a lot of hype right now for the 2022 draft, tweet him at me. I'll check him out. We'll see about updated mock drafts along the course of the year, of course. So the Eagles picking number 5. I thought this could have been a quarterback as well, depending on how Jalen Hurts progresses. Obviously, he could be awesome in 2021. He could be terrible in 2021 or anywhere in between. So this could be a quarterback that isn't in my top 32 right now that could go and get a lot of hype is Malik Willis out of Liberty. Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati is another one who I think could definitely get into the first round conversation. Phil Jurkovec out of Boston College. I saw him play last year. He looked awesome. Matt Corral out of Ole Miss has some tools. Brock Purdy's going to get his name thrown out there. Carson Strong out of Nevada. There are a bunch of really solid quarterback prospects where 2021 is going to be a big year to see how these guys progress. But I went with a corner instead. Derek Stingley's just phenomenal. He was phenomenal from the moment he stepped onto the field as a true freshman at LSU. Stingley is an incredible player, and the Eagles, if they're looking to keep Jalen Hurts, which I think is a possibility going into year 3, where this would be in 2022, maybe you look to go best player available, and it happens to be best player available at a position of need as well. So Derek Stingley to the Eagles at number 5. I like that for them. And then I'm having the Jets take a USC defensive lineman inside the top 6. I think Leonard Williams went at number 6 overall, right? He might have been 5. I think he was 6, though. Drake Jackson is a similar type of player to Leonard Williams. They're both versatile defensive linemen that can play outside or on the interior of the defensive line. They're huge players, and Drake Jackson is a monster. I think you can move him. He could be base 3-4 defensive end, playing 5 tech, or you could have him kicked outside. I think he has the athleticism and the explosiveness to come off the edge. So Drake Jackson's a guy that you can really get creative in the way that you use him. He's a really, really good player. And then the Giants, this was a tough pick for me. I thought about going a bunch of different players here. I think DeMarvin Leal, who's up next, would have fit pretty well. But if Daniel Jones in 2021 shows that he isn't the guy with all these weapons, Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, first-round pick, I think the Giants would be wise to at least consider moving on from him. And Keaton Slovis is a quarterback prospect out of USC. Back-to-back USC players going here. Like, what year is this? Like, it's like Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush. We haven't seen USC guys go near the top of the draft in some time outside of Leonard Williams, but we have 2 back-to-back. Slovis flashes. That's the biggest thing. He flashes. He makes some crazy plays, but developing as a quarterback and becoming more consistent is going to be big to see whether he goes very high in the draft or not. I think the Giants could take a shot at a QB. Keaton Slovis makes a lot of sense to me. And we talked about a lot of other quarterbacks in this class. I had a notable omission, which you'll see here coming up very shortly. At number 8 for the Falcons went with DeMarvin Leal. And Leal's a really, really good player. Another versatile defensive lineman like Drake Jackson, whereas I think Drake Jackson is more suited to play 4-3 defensive end. I think DeMarvin Leal is probably more of an interior defensive lineman, but he's extremely explosive. He's so twitchy, and you rarely see that type of athleticism from a 290-pounder, and he might even bulk up in 2021 as well. Really, really good defensive lineman, is capable of getting pressure on the quarterback, very good defending the run as well, but he really shines as a pass rusher, in my opinion, despite not putting up crazy sack totals. We got to get away from thinking that sacks at the collegiate level are the end-all, be-all. It doesn't matter. Like, if sacks at the collegiate level mattered as much as people want to think they matter, Jalen Ferguson would have gone number 1 overall. Gregory Rousseau would have gone number 1 overall. You have to look at the traits, the situation, and the potential fit. Don't look at sack numbers. Don't look at total yards. Some of these things, like showing production over time, is important, but total production is not the end-all, be-all. Leal's a really good player. Plays way above 2.5 sacks from the interior of the defensive line last year. Really, really awesome player. Has big-time potential in 2021. And the other quarterback I was talking about is JT Daniels out of Georgia. I have him mocked here to Washington football team at number 9. Another team probably at least thinking about taking a quarterback. Don't think Taylor Heineke's the guy. I don't know if they think Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to go another 10 years, but I doubt it. They need to look to invest in the future of the position, and to me, JT Daniels could be that. He's not getting a ton of first-round hype right now. You know, we're super far out, but JT Daniels is one of those guys that I think is going to have a meteoric rise, the way we saw Zach Wilson come out of nowhere and have a meteoric rise, and Joe Burrow kind of come out of nowhere and go number 1 overall. JT Daniels, former 5-star recruit to USC, transferred to Georgia, won the starting job. I think JT Daniels is going to be awesome in 2021. He is losing George Pickens, who's out with an ACL. Maybe he comes back for the 2021 season. I think there are some reports that he might be able to, which would be freaky, athletic, and be able to come back from a torn ACL that quickly. But JT Daniels will have some weapons around him. We know George is always a competitor in the SEC. I just really like him as a player. And what I saw from him winning the job last year and playing as well as he did, JT Daniels could be a guy that goes first round next year, even though we're not really hearing about him too much. I like JT Daniels as a player. But again, 2021 is going to be really big for him. Who knows what's going to happen? But a player that I think is almost a first-round lock at this point is Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame. Have him going to the Vikings at number 10 right now. they really could use help at safety. Harrison Smith is getting older, and they lost Anthony Harris. So what do you have at safety? Not a whole ton. Harris is a good player, but you haven't really been able to replace him yet. Kyle Hamilton could be that replacement. 6'4", 220, has great ability to defend the run in the box, but also has these great cover skills. As a freak athlete at his size, Kyle Hamilton's the real deal at the back end there, and you can use him in a lot of different ways as well. For the Raiders, went with Christian Harris. Listen, it's an Alabama player. That should be just all the explanation I need, but Harris is probably the best inside linebacker in a fairly weak linebacker class. So Harris to the Raiders just seems to make all the sense in the world. I know they drafted Divine Diablo, safety out of Virginia Tech, that they are going to play at linebacker. They still need more at the position. I need like a true linebacker next to Nick Witkowski, and I think Christian Harris could be that player. And then with the Steelers, got to invest in the offensive line at some point. I think Kenyon Green makes a lot of sense. He's a guy that's played guard for Texas A&M, but is probably going to kick over and play tackle. Really, really athletic offensive lineman. I think he has the capability of making the transition to tackle. And for the Steelers that need to look to address tackle and still potentially the interior of their offensive line, depending on how you feel about David DeCastro over the next 3 to 5 years, coming up to the end of his contract and getting older as well. David DeCastro is not the problem with that O-line. It's center and the 2 tackle spots, really, even though I know a lot of Steelers fans love Zach Banner and Chuma Okorafor, right? Excuse me, Chukwuma Okorafor, not Chuma, Chukwuma Okorafor. But the offensive line is still fairly weak. You drafted another Green, Kendrick Green, that you think is going to play center, but Kenyon Green is another versatile offensive lineman that probably could play tackle or guard. So just best player available at a position of need for the Steelers. I like cornerback at this spot as well, but Kenyon Green I think was just pretty good value. And remember, we are a year out. Things are going to change big time. As we move on to number 13 through 16, Charles Cross out of Mississippi State was my choice for the Panthers. Listen, Taylor Moton playing on the franchise tag. He might not be returning in 2022, so tackle is a big point of emphasis for me when I was drafting for the Panthers here. And also, I don't know what they have at left tackle for sure. Brady Christensen, I liked him in the 3rd round this year. Think he could be a good player in the future. Maybe future left tackle, who knows. Greg Little, I'm not super high on. Charles Cross would be a big help at offensive tackle if you were to lose Taylor Moton. I love their draft in 2021, so this was just the biggest position of need that I thought they needed to address in 2022 based off of what the draft board looked like. So Charles Cross was my pick. And then for the Titans, first receiver off the board is Garrett Wilson. I think receiver was a position of need for the Titans going into this draft, and they really didn't address it in a big way. But Garrett Wilson could be the best receiver in the 2022 draft class, and the Titans need to address that position and give a true weapon outside of A.J. Brown. So I think Wilson makes a ton of sense at that spot. Cade Mays for the Giants. The Giants need to improve their offensive line. Who knows what it's going to look like in 2022, but Zach Fulton is a Band-Aid. Will Hernandez might not be the guy. Shane Lemieux probably won't be the guy. And then I'm not sure how you feel about center, but Cade Mays is a plug-and-play starter at guard right away. And based off of Will Hernandez and Shane Lemieux and Zach Fulton, both being big question marks heading into the 2022 NFL Draft, figured Cade Mays was a good selection for the Giants here that might like to keep Andrew Thomas starting at left tackle and Matt Pert at right tackle, or Nate Solder still in there somewhere. So for the Giants, I just went best interior offensive lineman available. And then for the Saints, they love drafting their Ohio State players, and this one just fit really, really well. They need to upgrade cornerback. There isn't much outside of Marshawn Lattimore. I know they drafted Paulson Adebo, who I loved in the 3rd round, but Sevyn Banks at number 16 overall, I think is a great selection. Really, really good cornerback, and certainly much needed help at a really, really important position. Now for the Jets, we have cornerback Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson. Back-to-back corners go. And you're not going to see Darion Kendrick on this list because he's not at Clemson anymore. He's not anywhere right now. So even though he's a talented player, there are some personality, character concern, question marks with him. Andrew Booth Jr. at this moment in time does not appear to have any of those, and he's a really, really good player on the outside. Was very good in 2020. Like Andrew Booth Jr. a lot. The Jets need to improve at corner. Went defensive line earlier. I think that's going to be really important to improve Robert Saleh's defense, even though they were offense in the 2021 NFL Draft. Booth would be a really big addition to that secondary, which is super weak right now. Treylon Burks to the Patriots. The Patriots are really, really good. They rebuilt very quickly, And I think they're going to be back to being a big competitor in the AFC in 2021. We'll have to see if that happens or not, but I think there's a good chance. And this is still a team that has big question marks at receiver. I think we can say at this point that N'Keal Harry probably is never going to work out in New England. They went in on tight ends, but there's still not really too much there at receiver. Julian Edelman retired. Treylon Burks was a big-time bailout machine for Felipe Franks in 2020. I think he's a really good player and would be a big-time upgrade in New England. Ventrell Miller. It's kind of a weak linebacker class, as I mentioned earlier. Ventrell Miller's a really, really good athlete for Florida, and the Eagles need to upgrade at linebacker in a massive, massive way. And then for the Chargers, decided to go Kingsley Enagbare here, a.k.a. JJ Enagbare. And the thing with him is he is ultra talented coming off the edge, another explosive guy, and the Chargers could use help on the edge, and they're replacing Melvin Ingram, who was also a South Carolina Gamecock. So Kingsley Enagbare, JJ Enagbare, seems like he is a big-time fit here for the Chargers, who are doing a pretty good job to rebuild and put some big-time weapons on their team. Big draft for them in 2021, but they addressed corner. I don't want to go corner in 2022. We're going edge, and JJ Enagbare is a really, really talented one. It's a good cornerback class, and Kaiir Elam is right near the top of the list, falling to 21 in this scenario. Of course, we have no idea what's going to happen in 2021, so the 2022 draft is, ultimately a crapshoot at this point. But Kaiir Elam is a really, really good player. Cousin of former first-round pick Matt Elam, safety for the Ravens. Hopefully, Elam has a different career path and doesn't take the one that Matt Elam was on. But Kaiir was really, really good in 2020, and the Cardinals need to address corner in a huge way. Kaiir Elam at 21 would be awesome for them. The Cowboys take Jalen Weidermeyer, keep him in state. They need to upgrade tight end. I'm not a huge fan of Blake Jarwin. I don't really think Dalton Schultz is all that. Of course, Jalen Weidermeyer is no Kyle Pitts, but he's still a very good athlete, has prototypical size for the position, good hands as well. Definitely the top tight end in the class as far as I can tell right now. And the Cowboys could really look to upgrade that position. They're a team with needs kind of all over the place, but this is where I think we could see a tight end go. And then Chris Olave, saw how much he helped Justin Fields in 2020. Olave is a really, really talented player. And the Colts need to upgrade receiver. We've seen them take a receiver out of Ohio State in the past. Paris Campbell most recently, who just has not been able to stay healthy, unfortunately. But receiver's a position of need for them. Could also see them go corner. But with Elam off the board, with Booth off the board, with the top corners off the board in Sevyn Banks and Derek Stingley, probably don't go cornerback. So we're going Olave. And then for the Broncos, went with George Karlaftis. He is an edge. I think he could rotate across the defensive line, but he's a true edge right now. And the Broncos, with question marks surrounding Von Miller, and Bradley Chubb's a stud, but I'm not really sure Malik Reed is the guy you want starting off the edge. Karlaftis could be a position, or it could be a player they take at a position of need in 2022. Now for 25 through 28, starting with the Packers. And who knows if Aaron Rodgers is going to be on this team by this time next year, but we can't worry about it. We're going Nick Bonitto. I have him listed at outside linebacker here because I think he's capable of playing off the ball, although I wouldn't really like to see him do that routinely. I think Preston Smith ultimately has been a disappointment in Green Bay so far, and even though I like Rashawn Gary, I don't think Rashawn Gary needs to be a stand-up outside linebacker the way that I think Nick Bonitto is going to benefit from being a stand-up outside linebacker. He can play off the ball. I like him best when he's rushing the quarterback, but you have a number of different ways you can use him. Get creative, use this versatile player, so I like Nick Bonitto. George Pickens, probably the best receiver in this class. Tore his ACL, so I doubt George Pickens declares, but he is draft eligible, so we are including him. If he were fully healthy, Pickens probably goes a lot higher than this, but we see the Browns all the time take shots on injured players with super high upside, and George Pickens is exactly that at 26. If he actually declares, which I kind of doubt, I think the Browns would be wise to take him at 26. For the Dolphins, going Tyler Linderbaum, center out of Iowa. They're doing a really good job of improving their team and rebuilding right now. Kind of don't really have a ton of holes, at least that we know, based on how we anticipate players are going to be developed. But Linderbaum's a good player, plug and play at center, best center in the class right now, so makes a lot of sense for the Dolphins. And then for the Lions, going John Mechie III out of Alabama. Big-time receiver. The Lions really don't have a lot of receiver right now. I know they took Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I believe the 4th round. But with Tyrell Williams and Quintez Cephas and Brashad Perriman as your top options right now, and Perriman and Williams both on one-year deals, receiver is a position of need for the Lions. If John Mechie were available at 28, it feels like a steal. He's going to go off in 2021 with Bryce Young at QB. Mechie's a really, really good player, so I think he's tremendous value down the board here for the Lions. And then for the last 4 picks, I have the Bills going Ahmad Gardner. Thought about this being the first running back spot, and there are some really good running backs in this class. Breece Hall out of Iowa State's a big one. Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M are probably the 2 lead backs in my opinion. Zamir White out of Georgia too is at least worth mentioning, but probably not in the same tier as those top 2, at least not right now in my opinion. But I like Ahmad Gardner. He's a little handsy. He's prone to commit a penalty or 2, but he's got the cover skills, and the Bills need to address boundary cornerback. I think Ahmad Gardner would be a very solid selection near the back end of the first for them. Jordan Battle for the Ravens. They could definitely look to address safety. Deshaun Elliott's a good player, but Chuck Clark is coming up to the end of his contract, and you need to address safety. And I think you could get creative in the way that you use Jordan Battle as well. He could be your star. He could be your slot guy. You can use him in a bunch of different ways. Jordan Battle's a really good player. And near the back end of the first, Alabama to the Ravens just seems to fit. For the Bucs, I decided to go Justin Ross just because I wanted to talk about him. Ross is a weird one because he's coming back from a huge injury. So will he go off with DJ Uiagalelei? Definitely potential for that. It's going to be interesting to see how healthy he is and how impactful he is. But I think the pure allure of getting him on the other side of Mike Evans is very, very tempting. And with Chris Godwin playing on the franchise tag this year, don't know if he's going to be back in 2022. Don't know if Antonio Brown's going to be back in 2022. If you have Scotty Miller and Mike Evans as your top 2 receivers and then Tyler Johnson getting reps, you probably might look to upgrade receiver. Even if Scotty Miller is your slot guy, you need a true outside receiver on the other side of Mike Evans. Tyler Johnson probably isn't that. They see him as more of a receiver 4. And then for the Chiefs, they really could go with anything. So I decided to go with Myjai Sanders, edge out of Cincinnati, another really good athlete, and the Chiefs could look to address that Tano Passigno replacement. So that's how I see Myjai Sanders right now. But very, very interesting to do a 2022 mock draft a year out. So many things are going to change. Some of these players are going to go undrafted. Some of these players are going to go even higher than they were projected. So it will be very, very interesting to see. Please hit that subscribe button. I am going to do a prospect video for some of the top 2022 prospects. Obviously, you're getting a taste for some of these guys right now, but stay on the lookout for that video as well. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.
I hit it at the park, bend bones. See me high step to the end zone. My life like a game, Nintendo. Playing with the best, let them know. Get off the track, the train's coming through. Yeah. Promise you get in my way, then you best believe I'ma just run over you. Yeah. I'ma turn taking it back to the house. Defensive joke, I'm laughing so loud. Speedbird's good.